Okay. Hi, Nola. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So the thing that's hanging on the wall behind you, is that a macrame plant hanger?
It is just a macrame hanger, not a plant hanger. I
Not
do
a
want a
plant.
macrame plant hanger, but my mom used to have those. But no, it's just a the fun little macrame thing that I found. I'm very much a bohemian at heart, so I have kind of my gypsy touches around my house with some of the macrame. I've got another one in my living room, and I love that handmade stuff.
So you didn't make it yourself.
I didn't. I didn't. I kind of thought, hey, I could probably learn how to do that, during lockdown and quarantine. Everybody wanted to do a craft. And I thought about it. But no, I ended up buying it. Somebody else already knows how to do this better than me.
Okay, I know nothing. I know nothing about those things. Do you have to have a loom to make that?
No, it's more just a series of knots and things. I think my mom made a macrame plant hanger when she was younger because back in the 70s that was the thing to do. And you didn't have to have a loom or anything for that. It's just the series of knots and the rope.
Okay, so according to your bio, you're originally from Louisiana, and are you still there now?
No, I moved in 2000 to the Middle Tennessee area. I live in a very small historic town called Franklin, right outside of Nashville. So it's just south of Nashville, kind of the Franklin Brentwood line. Franklin is just a beautiful, beautiful old town with the main street and very Mayberry. Very different area from South Louisiana, but I love South Louisiana. I write about South Louisiana and I go back as often as possible, a couple of times a year at least. I'll go back down there. So I love it and I miss it
How long have you lived in Tennessee?
for about 20 years.
Oh, long time.
So
Okay.
long time, long time. But I would love to get back to Louisiana. It's one of those things that people are either anxious to get out or they go out, they get out and then they come back because they just miss it so much. I'm one of those that misses it terribly, and I would love to go back.
Okay. Do you have family in Tennessee?
I do. My mom and my brother and sister-in-law and their kids are here. So I do have some family here. I've got family and friends back in Louisiana too. So, it's we have our family time and do some fun things here. And Tennessee, I have to say, is a great place to raise a family and to have kids and lots of things for them to do. It's just a good, safe, wholesome place to be. So it's been good raising kids here for sure.
So you are a writer. Have you been a writer your whole life, writing books, or were you doing something else?
I have written, I really didn't write books until I was a lot older. I always loved to write. I wrote a lot of stories when I was a kid. I would always tell stories. And I was a theater kid, so I always kind of felt like I was telling a story in that way as well when I was on stage bringing a character to life. So, in essence, I had a storyteller's heart. It was just that I would tell stories in different ways, whether it was through theater or short stories. And then when I got a little older, I finally said, I think I'm going to sit down and actually write the longer story that's been in my head for so long. And I finally did. And it was really hard to do with small kids. So it was kind of piecemealed and I'd find some time to work on it and it would be a long time and I'd come back to it again. So the first book took a long time to write. And I learned a lot along the way, a lot of revisions, a lot of growth happening in that process, which was definitely needed because, your first book out, you think you know everything, you read it back and you're going, oh my gosh, that was just terrible. But you work on it enough and it becomes something that is ready to go out into the world, which is also the scariest thing in the whole universe is to put something you've written out there in the world for other people to read. It's that catch 22. You want people to read it and then you're terrified, especially when it's your first book. Um, but it's been a good journey. So from an early age, a storyteller, from a much more recent time, a writer.
How many books do you have published at this point?
I have two published right now. I have another one coming out in March. So that'll be the third book that will be out in March.
Okay, and now the title of the book is called.
Crescent City Moon is the
Okay,
first book. And it is the book 1 in the Crescent City series. The second book is Crescent City Sin, and it's the second book that's out right now. And the book coming out in March is Traveler. It's the first in a different series.
A lot of people are writing series. Is there a reason behind that?
Well, I actually wrote Crescent City Moon as a standalone. And when the publisher who picked it up read it, they offered the contract based on me making a series out of it. So I redid the ending, I reworked it, and it became the first book in a series. So that was actually a publisher's decision more than it was mine, but I've enjoyed writing the rest of the books. It was scary at first because I thought, oh my gosh, I've agreed to do this and I really have no idea what to do next. But the more I worked on the sequel, the more I loved the sequel. And I'm working on the third book in the series now and really having a great time with it. So it was the right decision for me, that they made for me. But it's really been great to be able to have some more time with these characters and their complex story, to really dig in and focus on different people along the way. And rather than the same characters doing the same thing over and over again, the story shifts a bit and we learn more about what seemed to be a secondary character in the first book is now more the focus of the second book. And then the same with the third, we kind of turn the camera on someone else a little bit and develop their story and their involvement with those characters from the first book. And it's all the same characters, it's just the focus, the spotlight is on someone different.
Okay. What is the genre of this series?
This genre of this series is a paranormal mystery. It's historical fiction. So we're looking at 1830s French Quarter, New Orleans, and it is paranormal. So there is lots of voodoo and some witchcraft. We have a maniac murderer who can kill on a whim, but they can't see her. So it's that fear of the unknown. How do you brace for a killer you can't see coming? And it's very, very reminiscent in many ways of kind of the Gothic horror of Edgar Allan Poe. I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan, love some Gothic horror. And it's got a lot of those elements in it, playing on human intuition as much as the magic and the mystery that is in there as well. So I say paranormal, but it's more the witchcraft and the voodoo that's in there and the Gothic elements of the Gothic horror, where it's not blood, guts, and gore so much as it is, playing on human intuition and human fear.
What made you decide to go with a traditional publisher versus self-publishing?
I think the fear of self-publishing. I mean, I honestly wouldn't have the first inkling of what to do, how to format a book. I mean, it's the technicality side of it. Okay. I think I do a lot of my own promotion, even with a traditional publisher. I don't think that people really understand how much of that responsibility rests on the author, even if you are traditionally published. But I wouldn't know the first thing about how to format a book for sale and, all of the distribution. That kind of intimidated me. And so I really fought hard for that traditional publisher only because of my own ineptness and just not knowing the industry, not knowing how to do those things, and not really trusting myself to get it right. And I really wanted to do the best I could by the story that I'd spent so much time on. And I really do admire those folks who have been successful with self-publishing, because it is truly something that is outside of my wheelhouse. And I'm in awe of them, truly in awe of them. I love that there are many options for authors out there. And one day I may dive into that self-publishing world. I'm just intimidated by it, to be perfectly honest.
Did you have trouble getting a publisher to pick up your book, or did you get lucky right out of the gate?
No, not right out of the gate. That would have been nice. It did take a little while and lots of rejection letters. I'm always reminded of one of my favorite authors is Jack London, and he wallpapered his office with rejection letters. So I have to think, okay, it's not just me. It also happened to one of my writing heroes. But this book actually got published as a result of a Twitter contest. It was a Pit Mad contest, and I put that pitch out there, and it happened to get picked up. So there's lots of different avenues, I guess, for finding a publisher these days, including, oddly, Twitter.
So this was a contest on Twitter that a publisher put out saying we're looking for, and you submit your work, and if you're lucky, we might take it. Is that?
In many ways, yes. It's a lot of publishers and agents come together for these certain events. There's Pit Dark, which is the hashtag that you would put with it. That is, tends to be the thrillers and, darker books, horror, those kinds of things. And then there's Pit Mad, which is another hashtag that they put out there. And there's certain days that they do it twice a year that the publishers and the agents are actually on Twitter looking for book pitches with that hashtag. And if they like your tweet with your pitch, then that's your invitation to submit to them, and it pushes you sort of to the top of their slush pile. So it greatly increases your chance of getting an agent or a publisher's or whoever's looking at those, their eyes on your work and kind of getting to the top of the heap. And those slush piles are a daunting place to have your query sitting there. So it's an interesting avenue, and it worked for me this time. I don't know that it would work again, but I think it was just kind of a lucky shot. I happened to get the right person looking at the right time.
So how long has this book been out now?
This one launched in October of 2019, and the sequel launched in October of 2020. And I don't recommend a pandemic for launching a book. It's very difficult to do. So yeah, that it was, of course, it's been a bit more slow going and harder push for the sequel with, it was just not really having all of the same avenues that we're used to and people's attention on other things. But Crescent City Moon has been out since October of 2019. So it's been a fun couple of years having that one out in the world.
Well, yeah, the pandemic did sort of put a full stop to book signing and things like that, but it moved everyone online.
Yes.
Which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think it's been a really
good thing. I've enjoyed hosting some online events and online interviews. And honestly, I've made a lot of friends, met a lot of people that I wouldn't necessarily have met and connected with otherwise. So I think it's been a good necessity in the long run. And I don't see myself really backing off of those things, even as we're able to get to more in-person things. I don't think I will stop interviewing authors or stop doing live events and things online, because you're reaching a whole different group of people. You're all over the world, where we used to stay kind of tucked in our little local niche. So I think it's been a good thing.
Yeah,
largely.
That's true. Well, we do have to wind this down. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Absolutely. NolaNash.com. And on that website, you will find all sorts of things from the live shows that I do, the podcasts that I host with Authors on the Air, Writers Showcase, and Dead Folks Tales, as well as how to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, super. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing with us. Nice meeting you, and